Wow, interesting one. Forget online first, omnichannel is the way. Yeah, thank you guys. It sounds more interesting. So we have Rutger and Erik from Netherlands.
We're trying to shock you a little bit because we appreciate all the talk about digital and online first, and we consider ourselves digital people. But the title of our presentation is Forget Online First. So we'll see where this is heading, right? I'm Erik van Heeswijk. He is Rutger Verhoeven. We work in digital, but also in traditional media. So sometimes we have blue hair, and sometimes just no hair and brown hair. We have all kinds of hair, actually. And I'm a journalist and interviewer. I was one of the first web editors in the Netherlands, back when we were like 12. 12 of us paid web editors. A journalist and an entrepreneur, and I worked on a lot of broadcasting and regional broadcasting programs.
Yeah.
And you?
My name is Rutger Verhoeven. I worked as a TV maker, a producer, made all sorts of children television, also presented for 3 years a television show in the Netherlands. And we work for lots of traditional and new media types, and we create all sorts of new cross-media formats. And this goes from newspapers to regular broadcasters, regional, national, doesn't really matter. So that's what we do, that's our background. And the companies that we used to work for is part of the NPO, so like the big Dutch company.
Yep.
What we like to share with you is our vision on journalism. Let's put it that way, on digital journalism. And we do this related to the big five. We thought that would be funny. You all know the big five, but it'll be big 5 chunks that we like to put the discussion on the table. We'll talk something about the way most of the news stories are being considered orphans. We'll discuss something which is called the split, which might be interesting and intriguing to look. Then we'll discuss something that what should actually be the goal of digital journalism. Then we'll talk something about the difference between show me and trust me. Something of that discussion already came across in different keynotes. And then we'll finally tell you something about what we believe in, which is called the omnichannel approach. And that's why you also should forget online first, because that's not actually the way it should be.
Yeah, and first, orphans. We need to talk about it. It's sad, but most stories that we produce are actually orphans. And what do we mean by that? Basically, in every newsroom, stories get published, they get produced, we print them, we publish them, and then they are without ownership. So nobody cares what happens to the story. So basically, the graphs always look like this, right? So we put it on our homepage, on Twitter, on Facebook, in the newspaper, and we forget all about them. And nobody owns the story. Nobody sees updates, follow-ups, optimizes the title, whatever. We're just a big machine. And we call that actually content dumping. Content dumping is just dumping it on the web or wherever. Yeah, it's basically a shame because the story is just traveling on its own without even in its most efficient or effective form. And yeah, this is wrong. It's actually wrong, and we see it every day in every newsroom. Just produce, produce, produce. And what does it actually signify? And if we take the attention curve, this is sort of the Harkin model. I don't know if you know that, but the attention curve of the newsroom is the purple one, and it's high when we detect a story. So we want to write a story, we want to film a program. Our attention of us as journalists is high, right? We produce a story, we publish it, we hit the publish button in our CMSs, and then our attention span is just gone, right? We're just heading on down because we want to produce the next story. Actually, the audience is the other way around, right? They don't know what we produce, you don't know what we write about, and when we hit that publish button, their attention is growing. And when they ask for us, when they want to know more about us, or know more about our subjects, basically we are not home. And this is what an orphan story looks like, right? And that on the backside is just a heart attack. It's just a heart attack of the newsroom. And what you want to do is have in your newsroom more attention to optimizing stories, or to make them better, or better distributed, or better written. And in that last section of a story of every newsroom, there's a lot to be won. It's not about producing as many stories, quantity, but quantity-wise, but it's more about what is the best timing, what is the best forum, what is the best channel to produce that story about, and can we really make that the most effective story that we want? Digital, of course, we all love the web, right? But it sometimes makes us into deadline machines. We're just producing. The deadlines are all over the place, right? And we are just becoming a sort of a robot if we're not careful. Even if we are a page view machine, a click machine, we want to produce. And basically that's wrong, because it delivers low quality journalism, and it doesn't even work on what metric whatsoever. On quality, quantity, page views, loyalty, engagement, it simply doesn't work. So we want to talk a little bit about what it does for your newsroom if you make your newsroom into a deadline machine. Because then what happens is basically what we call, and what Simon Sinek calls, the split. And we want to show you a couple of seconds, I think a minute or something. And we'll talk about if you recognize that. Hit it. Oh, okay. No sound. Yes, sound.
And the single biggest challenge that any culture or any organization will ever face is its own success. When an organization is founded, all organizations are founded on the same basic principles. There's some sort of measurement, it's often money, but it can be anything, and then there's time. And when an organization is founded, what they do and why they do it are inextricably linked. There's usually some founder or some small group of founders that are able to put their vision into words, and their passion inspires others to come and join them in pursuit of something greater than all of themselves. And they trust their guts and off they go, and it's an amazing experience. The problem is, as they grow, as what they do becomes more successful, they can no longer rely on themselves. They have to now hire somebody who hires somebody who hires somebody who hires somebody who hires somebody who has to make a decision. Based on what? And what they do starts to grow, that metric. The problem is, why they do it starts to go fuzzy. And this is the biggest single challenge any organization will face. It's this thing right here, the thing that I call the split. Symptoms of the split inside an organization are when stress goes up and passion goes down. Symptoms of a split are things like when the old-timers, the people who were there from the founding, from the beginning, start saying things like, it's not like it used to be. It doesn't feel the same anymore. They can't quite put it into words, but they know it's not the same. Even though the organization might be more successful than it ever was in the past, it's just not the same.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, Hans, who recognizes this? Just, okay, okay, a lot of people.
Yes. Well, and the problem with the split is, if you relate this to news organizations who create news, is that they start copying each other, right? So there's lots of news, so we also create lots of news. So we all create lots of news, and we start to create news. And all the stories that we try to produce and put into the world are all recognizable related to this metric, and it's all recognizable related to the what question. What should we talk about? What should we produce? And everybody is not paying any attention to the why. And that's, who am I talking to? Why should my audience actually take any notice of this story? Why should this be interesting at all? And the thing is, we try to look at data, or we try to make a new strategic effort, which is called online first, but it actually grows the what metric, and it doesn't help you to become more related to your audience, be more relevant, be more in the playing field of being something that is useful, right? And so another thing that Simon Sinek talked about, I know for sure that you know what this is. If you don't, look it up. It's called the Golden Circle. And the thing is, in every newsroom, because we work with news organizations, it's always the discussion about what are we going to talk about today? What is the news today? What are we going to make? And nobody is discussing how should we make it, or on which channel should we deliver it first, and they also forget to talk about why. Why are we making this story, right? They're making it because everybody else is making it. That's the only reason. But that's a what question, not a why question. And the thing is, you should take in consideration, who am I talking to? Who should care about the story that I'm writing? Who? And if you have the who, I think in the beginning of this morning there was a discussion about personas. It's interesting to think about who should care about the story that I'm writing. Where does this person live? On which channel should I put it first? Should it be a YouTube version or should it be a long editorial text on some website? It's really important to take that in consideration. We're not going to show you this video, but Tom Rosenstiel, he's from the American Institute, Press Institute. He has a really interesting discussion on TEDx. And what he is saying related to digital journalism is that there is a major shift going on. And the shift is that from trust me to show me. And the trust me situation is related to traditional media. So traditional media was always saying, come to me, come, I will tell what story is important for you. You don't have to think about anything. Just come to my place and I will tell you what to think about, what information you should have. And this has changed massively because it's changed to show me. People are, there is so much news around, there is so much storytelling around. They can pick from whatever channel, from whatever organization they want to get relevant stories. So the me in the trust me to show me is me as a media organization thinking I'm really traditional, I'm really great and you should listen to me, is show me is the public. Tell me, show me that you care about me. Show me that you know where I live. Show me in what kind of type of information I want to intrigue or be engaged. And this is something, this is hard for traditional news organizations because they don't know how to do that because they don't know who they're talking to. And so the who, again, is on at stake. And we had this discussion today. This is exactly the problem, right? This is the problem. If you don't know who you're talking to, then you might miss the boat completely because you'll be doing it on a channel that's totally not relevant.
Yeah, it's not about blue hair, it's about the personal stuff, right?
Exactly.
And we're not saying that traditional media is gone or not important or that traditional ethics, journalistic ethics are not important at all. On the contrary, actually. It's the form and the timing and the way we produce it that's actually not very actual. And one of the first companies that did it very differently was BuzzFeed. And you can think about their content what you want. We know we all click the listicles about zebras and stuff like that. But they also just harbor very interesting journalists. And they make all kinds of scoops in US politics and stuff like that. And what they discovered is wherever, whenever, we need to be present where our audience is, which is a bit of a cliche right now, but who does it well, right? But on the other hand, they discovered that content is actually emotion. So I share different things with my mother than with my friends. And that says something about the content, but it says also something about the relationship between person A and person B. So can we use that relationship between people to distribute our content? We had a lecture about this with all the arrows and stuff like that. It's about emotion. Yeah. And we are not very good at this. We're not very good at thinking about this. And what we do basically is this is a scheme that BBC just once used and we adapted a little bit. What we regularly encounter is that not the whole journalistic buffet is there, right? We had a lunch here, there's all kinds of little cookies and soup and bread. We need all that stuff. To make it interesting, to make a lunch interesting, we need all the different stuff. And the journalistic approach is not very different. We need stuff that inspires us, that keeps me on trend, that educates me. What do? We make a lot of content just to be updated, just to give us facts. And facts are really important for society and all kinds of things, but they're usually quite boring if you don't pour them in the right form, right? So we forget all the other stuff. We forget to inspire people, and what's most important, it doesn't help us at all, also commercially, business-wise, because in that same research from BBC, the update stuff just gives us 7% of all the page views, but it's 70% of what we produce. So why do we do it? Because we think it's important, sure, but we are not the audience, right? So it doesn't help us on any level, the way we produce news, actually. And is this theoretical? Is this a model? Is this the future? No. If you think about CNN, for example, I'm a CNN viewer because I have a defect that's called love for US politics, right? What they do actually is, if you see the page, they do that. And I don't think they use the theoretical model, but inherently they use that model because they update me, they give me perspective, they divert me, they inspire me. And it's always a sort of a buffet. It's never always update me. It's never always inspire me. The whole buffet is everywhere on that page, every day, every single moment.
Yeah, and it's related to the what and the why question, right? Because if you create the whole buffet, you're thinking about your audience. And there are different audiences who want to connect to specific stories. And so if you deliver that in different forms, it'll be more interesting to
Yeah, it creates more loyal viewers, it creates more loyal clickers, but also more engagement, more discussion. In this way, journalism fills much more of the hole that I have inside as it comes with information, right? Not only just an update machine or a deadline machine. So we're going to a new paradigm, actually. That's what we want to talk about.
Exactly. So it's not online first. That's more like I already said. It's feeding the metric of creating what. We should go to story first, or an omnichannel approach. Think about where does your audience live? What is a great content way of reaching your audience on all these different channels? And how should I translate my story into something interesting and engaging on all these channels? And what should be the rhythm of how I do the whole buffet? And so this shift is important. Now, we're going into a very interesting theoretical model. So this is all the channels that you have, right? And we think you should think of your content that you're producing as a semi-finished material, like raw material. And what you're looking for is the experience. So not the content is your product, but the experience is your product. And the experience you get from all the consumers that are actually on these channels, trying to get your content. When are they reading it? How long are they reading it? Are they viewing it? Are they sharing it? Are they liking it? Is there any way of engagement? What can we learn from the way we're distributing our content on all these channels? And you get all these data of experience, and it will tell you how you are actually organizing your buffet and how you are actually trying to reach all sorts of different types of people, and who are you connecting with, and what is interested to them, and how you should do this. And this content as semi-finished product is a very hard thing for people to work with, because a regular editor doesn't want to give his content away and then let someone else turn this into a really relevant slideshow for Instagram story, for example. But this should be the way you should do it, and you should grab all this information from your consumers, the data from how they use their content on all these platforms, and then you should actually name all sorts of channel managers within your organization who know the metrics of all these channels, who know what is the right moment, what is the right form, what is the right amount of communication that you should take care of on all these different channels. And then you can actually have the full buffet and be real relevant in a complete scattered and digital landscape that we're facing, where lots of people are making lots of what stories.
Yeah, so basically what we're saying is digital online first is producing a new horseless carriage syndrome, right? So the first television looked like theater. And if you do online first, you're basically making one channel more important than all the others, just not viewing on the impact of the story. And you're producing the next hurdle as you go along. So this sounds well. And who think this is very logical, like natural, what we say? Okay, nobody? Oh, that's interesting. Okay, and who does it well? Just think within their own organizations. We do that well, all the channels and stuff like that. Who does it well? Okay, also nobody.
Okay.
Right here. Fine. But what we see is we need to have a workflow that works. And of course you can say we have content on all these channels and in different forums, and I heard the suggestion of all kinds of niches like nurse and bicycle riders and stuff like that. Fine, but how do we do it with a scarce amount of people, right? How do we do that in a newsroom? It's really hard work. And what you do is you need a workflow. You need a why, what is my brand? You need a production. And then you have the semi-finished products. You need editing for all the channels. And this is a workflow you have to set up, basically. It's not very difficult, but there's a lot of discussion about whose material it is, where's the edit forum, and stuff like that. But you need that discussion. And as this is so fluid, the Facebook of yesterday is not the Facebook of tomorrow, or even television is changing rapidly. Content strategy is a hard thing to do, because you have to rewrite that content strategy plan every half a year, which makes you crazy. In that fluidity, you need more strategic thinking, which is not the same thing as a strategy. You need able people that are willing to look at the data, look at the channels, and have mature discussions on the why. And what we are trying to do, and we worked in public broadcasting for a long time, is make plans and make paper and still more paper. And then we have the strategy of 2019 and then 2021. And when we produce that paper, the strategy is changed again. So we need people that can think strategically. And it's sort of the culture, it's strategy for lunch, right? For breakfast. It's you have to be flexible in your workflow.
And these channel managers can tell you actually what is important to the audiences they're trying to reach. In one of your sheets, I saw the lady that did the fact checking on the guy with the blue hair, and she said, "I do YouTube every Thursday at 6:30." Well, the thing is, YouTube is actually a non-linear platform, right? But they program linearly. And why do they do that? Because the kids that are watching YouTube, they need free Wi-Fi. They don't want YouTube when they're in a bus, because that's way too expensive. They'll wait till they're at some place where they can get free Wi-Fi, so they can actually look a long video. And so these channel managers, they will be able to tell you on what platforms, what kind of content, on what sort of people you should reach. And that's what we mean by strategic thinking. It's all about timing, about content forms. That is so much more important than just spreading out content and going for content dumping like we saw in the first sheet.
So, and in producing all that content, we need data, and we need to look at data on a daily basis, right? And how do we do that? Because the data-driven approach is also sort of a cliche, but you know how you recognize a newsroom? That's a bunch of people. When you throw in an Excel table in the middle, they just run away. Newsrooms are not very good at looking numbers, and especially their own numbers. They just pick the biggest number out and they order cake, right? So how do we do data in a newsroom? First of all, the most important thing is all our data is not on a story level. Most of our data is channel data, is Facebook data, web analytics data, radio listening data, and that's not the way we function on an editorial, on a newsroom. We want story data. So what we basically did for regional broadcasters and in our own system is we made story graphs. We made real-time graphs of what a story does across the different channels, because we want to know the orchestration of that story between those channels, what the timing is, where the impact is. And that is how the data is becoming story first and not online first or channel first.
Yeah, and we worked for lots of regional broadcasters trying to fix this problem and trying to create a new workflow so they can actually start serving their audiences on a better and more engaging and more strategic way. Like Erik said, we've created a tool that does that, who has story information on multiple channels and will actually notify you. And so we turned these editorial rooms, these newsrooms, into real-time operating omni-channel machines that are story-first, story-driven. And with notifications, we can actually make newsrooms actionable. Because now, if the tip comes in, they can actually start acting on it, right? They can start giving a follow-up on a specific channel, or putting a specific story into a newsletter because we know the timing is very right for this newsletter, or they can create extra video if that is available, and put it out on YouTube. Or we see in lots of all these are all news oriented organizations. We see they're missing out on the evening moment on Facebook, and lots of people are on Facebook and they want catch-up TV of what was the news of today. And if you start making that in 2 minutes, really interesting form, they will actually afterwards turn into your TV show. So the conversion from a channel like Facebook will be much better if you firstly serve them on the channel of their first preference. So that's what we do. And that's how we help them. And so the shift is actually that you don't need feed fillers, you don't need what stories, but you need actually storytelling. So you don't want to hunt for news, but you want to make relevant content in order to serve your audience well. And that's pretty much what we had to say.
Well, basically, what we envision is an omnichannel approach. Needs data. You need a very high quality decision making to do an omnichannel approach, to find the right niches, to find the right people on the different channels. It's becoming very complex. And when data is done right, it actually helps the creative process. And what we see a lot of the times is that data is thrown in and just hinders the creative process. And we look at it this way: stories are just data with a soul, right? So if we just mold the data into our decision making, our workflow, our people, and basically if the data reflects our vision, it will be so much stronger than what we do today. So remember, stories are just data with a soul.
Exactly.
Thank you.
So, forget online first. If there are any questions, we're very happy to answer them.
Hello.
Hello.
In your workflow charts, it all starts with the brand, right? If you use the brand Omroep Friesland and you try to reach young people on social media, how do they react? How did they react in your experience?
Yeah, well, what is important to tell you, it's the arrows indicate that there is lots of news coming into the brand, right? And what we do with all these brands is make a brand guide. So we ask them in several sessions, what should your brand look like? How should your brand behave? How should your brand talk? On what channel should your brand be available? Who is your key target? What is the key promise of your brand to this key target? And if we have defined all that, it's more easy to filter what stories should actually be at stake or not. So it starts already with filtering in the beginning. And then we can actually stop making the what stories and think about, okay, so for a very bad example, but a truck hits an accident of a truck. A feed filler will be a truck crash. All right, great. People will click on it. Oh, there are no pictures. Okay, next story. But if this means this happened for the 7th time on this highway, it's always Polish drunk drivers who do this. There is something wrong with the traffic lights. I don't know. Make more context. Then you see that the relevance of this story will add up, and the audience is actually engaging to it. Is that an answer?
Sort of, yeah. I'm kind of curious to see how you reach new audiences with the same old brands.
With the same?
Old brands.
Yeah, that's very difficult, of course, yeah. Because, but they need to stop producing some of these stories, right? That's the first one. The first one is, when we come in, we kill stories. And basically, we almost always tell them, bring your production down. The quantity of stories, bring it down. So you have more concentration, more of your free time to really elaborate on what you're making and what's the best form on which channel. So first mistake is always too much stories. And if we, for example, ask an organization a metric, just choose any metric, right? Page views or whatever, and I ask them, what should the target for every story be, right? Name a target, anywhere. They say, well, a story should have a minimum of 10,000 page views, minimum. And beneath that, it shouldn't be made. Almost always, 30% of their stories is below the target line. Almost always. And they freak out, actually, because they didn't realize that. So it starts with just trying to calculate which stories shouldn't be made, which is not on your brand, which is not on your vision, which is not on your journalistic mission, and even not on your page view targets, for example. So kill stories.
Yeah, and another thing is for Omroep Brabant, for example, we made a new format on Instagram related to the humans of New York, and it's called Nice People. And so editors are just in the field trying to collect stories of nice people that live in the region of Brabant in the Netherlands. And what happens is people are starting to like all these stories, and there is more sometimes to this story, and it turns into a news item or a podcast or a slideshow or an Instagram story. So they start to collect because they know who they want to be, they know who they want to reach. They start to make different stories on different channels, and it gets more enriched content.
I want to. I made a film about a greengrocer. It was commended here. But I first started with a very small portrait in 7 tweets. Yeah. And on that tweet, there came a lot. The same as you tell, there came a lot of reactions on Facebook. Well, the old man didn't have Facebook. So then I thought, oh, this is a very good story. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's exactly the same what you are saying.
Yeah. We have another question.
I know what you guys doing. What would have helped to understand your story is perhaps you can show us 1 or 2 examples of the system you use on how you follow. You've got one slide to show?
The shortest answer is, if anybody wants to know how that looks like in data, just come on over, we'll show it.
You also do, but that makes it more understandable.
Well, we hate product presentation, actually, so we didn't do it.
Yeah.
Anybody? It's logical? Okay, so from next week on, you'll be able to do this.
Yes,
and,
very good.
Have fun with that. I think it's the model for the future. So please be in contact if you have any questions, and good luck.
Yes, thanks for having us.